So, while nothing has been officially revealed or confirmed, it's probably the worst kept secret in gaming right now. Modern Warfare 2, the hotly anticipated follow-up to Modern Warfare 2019, is likely going to be the game that comes out this fall from Infinity Ward as the next IP and entry into the Call of Duty franchise. I mean, we've literally had direct confirmation that it's a follow-up and a sequel to the game. We've had Infinity Ward trolling on Twitter, asking for name suggestions, and almost anything you could expect that isn't flat out saying Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. But whatever the name is, today I want to talk about some new, potentially good information for the upcoming project as detailed by some industry insiders who have proven to have a solid track record in the past. Today we're going to be breaking down some of that intel in regards to Modern Warfare 2. So as we go along, drop your thoughts below. Do you like the sound of these changes and updates to what we know? Anything that may concern you? Whatever the case, drop it down below. But if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare 2 and anything COD related. And finally, my friends over at G Fuel have bumped up code Espresso to 30% off your entire order. So if you want to try something out for the very first time, get a restock. Right now is as best a time as any. So check the link in the description below if you're at all interested. But that said, let's jump into it. So officially speaking, from Infinity Ward and Call of Duty, again, we've been kind of dancing around the final answer that we all expect. Infinity Ward first took to Twitter after Activision's earnings report went out earlier in February, saying a new generation of Call of Duty is coming, stay frosty. Then on the 10th, a week later, speculation and rumors were being thrown around from insiders that were a day later confirmed when the embargo for Warzone's future was lifting, which to talk about those plans, you had to mention the upcoming project of what is likely Modern Warfare 2, to which their Twitter account at that time of these leaks happening simply tweeted the Antonio Banderas gif from the movie Assassins. That sweet reaction to sweet information, pretty fitting. A day later, when that embargo did lift, we learned quite a bit about Warzone's future, but the confirmed pieces of intel surrounding Modern Warfare 2 and the coming project at hand later this year included the confirmation that Call of Duty 2022 is a sequel to Modern Warfare 2019, that there's a massive evolution of BR with an all-new play space and sandbox mode, which is speculated to be the new DMZ mode, and that we'd see a new engine powering both the new game and the Warzone follow-up. And finally, Infinity Ward trolling a bit later on that day by screenshotting the bulleted point of COD 2022 as a sequel to Modern Warfare 2019 by saying, "So what are we calling it? Wrong answers only." Very clearly nodding at the answer that everyone already knows. Unofficially speaking, though, there's quite a bit of information and insight into the game and the coming content that is rumored right now from sources with credible track records. But of course, with nothing being officially confirmed, it's all just rumors at the moment. But that said, we'll see the return of 141 with returning and new faces introduced. The campaign will be focused around the war on drugs with Colombian cartels as antagonists. It'll be more focused on stealth and spec ops as opposed to the larger militarized operations that we'd seen in Modern Warfare 2019. The MP is apparently looking familiar, but introducing even more compared to what we saw with Modern Warfare 2019, with even the addition of classic Modern Warfare 2 content being introduced as rumored, as additional content given since Modern Warfare 2's remastered multiplayer was finished and then shelved indefinitely during the main year of support when Modern Warfare 2019 was going on, so that can make for some great stuff returning. We'll apparently see a new Escape from Tarkov style game mode called DMZ, which is a new PvPvE looter shooter mode replacing Spec Ops as that third mode, and that will be attached to Modern Warfare 2, not free to play and standalone as Warzone is. And we'll also see that DMZ world be introduced into the Warzone 2 content. But of course, we can go way more in depth, but for now, that's kind of the basic gist of it. But the new details come from the Ghost of MW2, the insider we've talked about here before, whose track record has actually proven to be pretty solid. Now, he ended up throwing out a flurry of different tweets, so reading through them, he stated the following about Modern Warfare 2 here upcoming. That movement is faster than Modern Warfare 2019, but not as fast as Vanguard. Map design is led with the concept of retaining the traditional Call of Duty experience while staying true to Infinity Ward flair. Doors were seen on a number of maps, but of course, then being present or missing from a final build isn't 100%. Map design to be similar to DLC maps of Modern Warfare 2019, like Oil Rig, Condor Hideout, and Sawmill, with a more brighter aesthetic. Combat pacing is seemingly planned to return, Classic and Blitz, though subject to change. UAV, Sentry, Chopper Gunner, and Soundwave, apparently a new EMP for audio that distorts hearing. The Classic minimap returning, but is not final. It's likely being tested, but the game could absolutely ship with Modern Warfare 2019's styled minimap. And finally, saying the game is looking remarkably polished considering it's only February. I'm guilty of hyping up the last year's Call of Duty and not playing it a month or so after the release. That stops. I will say, though, I'm genuinely positive for Modern Warfare 2 this year. I'll die on this hill, screenshot away. So what this means in terms of gameplay, honestly, the big takeaways that I have here is that this is kind of great to hear. I love the team at Infinity Ward. I've met some great individuals there, but historically speaking, they've been a rather stubborn studio with design philosophy, which from an artistic or creative perspective, sure, they can stick to their guns. It's like a band wanting to or not wanting to adjust their sound over the years. After all, they control their designs. We merely choose to play it or not, but for them to consider what the community wants, I quite like that. Again, especially having been historically more stubborn. Obviously, we don't have enough to hail it as the community's saving grace or end-all be-all, and I doubt that it'll please everybody. That's impossible, but even with some of the big fundamental shifts in design approach being acknowledged, that's a solid start at the very least. When talking like this, I predominantly mean things like the minimap, less doors, looking to replicate classic Infinity Ward flair, things like that. I like the sound of that if that actually does hold up. But coming back to that final statement that Ghost made, the game is looking remarkably polished considering it's only February. This is something that I kind of want to clarify on. And as many may have heard, this game apparently is now in alpha. A very, very common misconception that even I was guilty of just as short a time ago as a few years before diving headfirst into dealing with game dev much more in an investigative level, talking with many different studios, many different developers. A common misconception is that alpha means unplayable or nowhere near finished. If you're thinking that alpha is like basic poly designs and stick animations to act as player models, you'd be wrong. Alpha is simply the first draft of the final product. The best comparison that I can think of, which may be a bit of a memory stretch here for some of us older that may not have been in school for a long time, the best example I can think of is the first draft of an essay or term paper. You've done all the research, all the crafting of ideas, the flow of the writing is in place, you've written basically the entire thing. What you have of that first draft is definitely something that's legible, it can tell a story, but the reason you revise it to double, triple, or however many times you check to feel necessary is to get it right where you want it to be. But that full product is actually there. In terms of game dev, that can be anything from polishing off any world bugs to things like more minuscule scaling, like tweaking of weapon design values, such as like your damage values. Alpha doesn't mean unplayable, but rather it's the first entry of the full product in a potentially live and acceptable state. For comparison, Modern Warfare rumored to be 2 is the earliest that I've personally ever heard of a COD game going into alpha. Modern Warfare 2019 was the last of the games that I had seen in its earliest forms, and even was a game that I got to play at that state with a playable build that honestly was really solid back in April of 2019. What we're going to discuss later on here on the channel is that polish and completion doesn't necessarily always equal a perfect game. Design philosophy can always step in and kind of skew things here with that. And when we talk about things like Modern Warfare 2019's alpha, yes, it was in an acceptable state. It was a very solid build of the game, but the design philosophy obviously wasn't quite 100% where players wanted it to be. We didn't have the traditional minimap. We didn't have a couple of things on the HUD elements that were there present with the full launch of the game. So things like that can absolutely shift and can change the perception of the game, so polish doesn't always mean perfect. Just bear that in mind. But to consider then that this project is 2 months ahead of schedule before that, something that was presentable, something that was definitely passable, that gives me some nice hope for what's to come later this year. Whether it lives up to our hype, our anticipation, who knows? As excited as I am to be immersed in the Modern Warfare universe once again this year, I'm going to do my best to keep my expectations level-headed, because I think that if we blow this out of proportion, all we'll see is disappointment. If we get our expectations up way too high and nothing can ever realistically meet that, that part's kind of on us. So for now, we ended up getting some new information here that hopefully results in some good changes to the overall product of Modern Warfare 2. I'd be all for a little bit faster movement than Modern Warfare 2019, but in between where we are now and Vanguard, I'd be cool with some of the map design that we see here that tries to follow and replicate classic Infinity Ward map design. I'd be cool if we see less doors. I'd be cool if we see combat pacing return, as strange as that may seem, because ground war was actually such an integral part here to Modern Warfare 2019. I'd be curious to see how that plays out. Though I do like the combat pacing feature within Vanguard, I would be more than happy to see the classic minimap return here and not have something needed like a perk as Vanguard does or something like that. Change some of the muzzles how Black Ops Cold War did so that you can stay off the radar without having to end up using a silencer, whereas you may not want that. I'd be totally cool with that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this is some good information here and good insight into what's coming. Again, we're likely still a ways off from any official reveal, any official teasers or gameplay even. So right now, take it all with a grain of salt, but wanted to fill you guys in here on some potentially new intel as for Modern Warfare 2. That said, that's going to wrap it up. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this here? Are you liking the sound of some of these new changes and introductions here to maybe even the fundamentals of Modern Warfare's MP? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. But if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare 2, anything COD related, especially as you gear up for what is hopefully a very exciting year upcoming. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.